Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another chapter of Experiencer Interviews. And today we have Judy Carroll coming to us from Australia. Now, this would be Judy's second time on. Her first time was during a Grey extraterrestrial panel. She was joined with Susie Hansen and Sherry Wild. Now, Judy was born in Queensland, Australia in 1952. Her family background is Creole, English, and Romany. She left school to pursue a career as a professional flamenco dancer, following in the footsteps of her grandmother, who was a dancer and clairvoyant medium in the Romany tradition. Judy feels that this background has helped her to assimilate the encounters she had with Grey ETs since early childhood. 60 years of these ongoing and at times fully conscious encounters has given her a deep insight into the phenomenon which is happening to many thousands of people worldwide. Being born into a Romany family has also given her an insight into being different among fellow humans and its effect on the psyche. Full awakening about her connection to ETs came in 1983 at the age of 30 with a daytime encounter during which several Greys appeared to her in full daylight and she recognized them as family. She was given a massive download of information and advice regarding the mission being carried out on Earth, the part she was to play in it, and further studies she needed in order to undertake this role to the best of her ability. Judy is the author of 5 books. Her most 2 recent books are An Interview with an Alien, Comments by an Undercover ET, and Cosmic Spirituality, Blending Religion and Science in Oneness from an Off-Planet Perspective. And in 1995, her off-planet family requested her to write a book on the subject of ET Earth human contact from the off-planet perspective. This request has resulted in her 3 previous books, The Zeta Message, which I have right here, and the Human by Day, Zeta by Night, and The Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth. So thank you so much for coming on, Judy.
Hi, Yannick. Lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
So yeah, going back to your story again, I know you've been on with me once, but a lot of the times when I start off with the questions with the interviewees, the first thing I say is, do you remember, did anything happen to you of consequence when you were a kid? What's your first memory of high strangeness? But for you, you seem to have come to Earth as a Grey, so that would be like your first memory of coming to Earth, really.
Well, actually, Yannick, no, it's not, because I made the decision before I was born to come in as a blended or dual soul consciousness. Okay. But the other decision that I made, and this was absolute free will decision, was not to be able to remember the ET aspect of my soul consciousness throughout my childhood, because I wanted to actually experience the fear, as people do down here, of ET contact, so that I would have empathy when I started working with people as I'm doing now. Okay. So if I'd come in with that full ET consciousness, I wouldn't have been able to understand. It would have been, oh, why are people scared? You know, it's all good. But no, I was absolutely terrified as a child. Oh. I had a couple of half-remembered encounters of being taken up onto a ship, but not particularly clear. And I spent every night in fear of someone or something coming into the house to take me away. I was absolutely terrified. Wouldn't go to bed on my own without Mum sitting next to me until I fell asleep. And this went on until I was about 11 years old. I was very embarrassed about it at the time. I never told any school friends, you know, about having to have Mum there beside me. But since then, I've heard of others in the same situation, children who go through all this fear. I had all the classic symptoms of fear, of the fear of eyes, the fear of dolls, fear of puppets. Many people who've had contact with the Grey ETs have those same fears because of the way the Greys move. Because some of them are in artificial type bodies, and they have a sort of a puppet-like appearance. Yeah. At age 15, I underwent a paralysis experience, what do they call it? Mind awake, body asleep experience. I've heard it described as. Many people who have contact with ETs have this. And I experienced it for the first time at age 15 when I woke in the middle of the night, or I should say half woke in the middle of the night, and I could see the doorknob of the room turning, and I was trying to yell at the top of my voice to call my parents who were at the other end of the flat, because I couldn't get up. Flat, I say unit or apartment, I think you call them over there. Here we used to call them flats. Calling out, trying to get them to come to me and help. And of course, nothing was coming out of my mouth. And the next minute, I just blanked out. The following morning, I woke up with a memory of this, but no memory of anything else. All I could remember was that I couldn't move and the doorknob was turning. But the funny thing was, after that, the fear started dissipating. And I know that during that experience, I had missing time, of course, I actually met up with the Grey Teacher, Oris, who I work with, and I became more consciously aware of his presence. Because after that, I started feeling more comfortable with the whole thing and calling on him for help. And that was a point when he started really intervening in my life. It was around that time that I suddenly developed a strong urge to learn Spanish dancing. Now, up until then, I'd never been into dancing at all. I had no idea that I had a great-grandmother who'd been a dancer. Knew nothing about this. But this really strong urge came upon me. And I just finished school. I escaped from the school system at age 15. And Spanish dancing just was not taught in schools here in Queensland. I mean, nobody even knew about it. You know, kids did ballet, but nothing else. And a couple of weeks after that, an article came into the local paper that this woman, a local woman who had been over in Spain dancing in a group over there, was going to start classes up. So this was just absolutely off the planet, amazing, strange stuff for where I was living. So I signed up straight away, and it became my career. And what I found out many, many years later was I was guided into this by my Grey Teacher, Oris, to help me to learn how to express emotion through a human body. And it was also a wonderful way of learning to meditate, but at the same time have both left and right sides of the brain in operation. Because in flamenco dancing, there's the footwork and there's the castanets, but there's another component of it that is in Spanish is referred to as duende. And this roughly translates as like a spiritual experience coming down over the dancer. So you go into an altered state, driven by the shamanic beat of the music. So from age 15, I was basically trained in this shamanic type of trance, performing or working under trance, but still being able to keep the left side of my brain active to be able to follow with the guitarist and the group and all that. So my training started then. At age 30, I had an absolutely full-on daytime encounter that you mentioned in the bio, and this happened. I was married at the time, living on an acreage property, and my husband's family were over for the day. And in the afternoon, mid-afternoon, I started feeling like I was coming down with the flu. Started feeling off colour. So I made an excuse and went upstairs to a bedroom at the back of the house, lay down and shut the door. And the next second, the paralysis state came over me again, along with a loud, roaring, buzzing sound in my head. I felt like my head was going to explode, headache, really feeling off. Next moment, I became aware of 3 greys standing beside the bed. Now, this was mid-afternoon, and they were blocking out light. There was a window beside me, and they were blocking out light. They was in so solid 3D presence. And they started communicating with me. And as soon as I saw them, all the last little bits of my fear just completely disintegrated, because I recognised them as family, and one of them was my teacher. And I recognised him straight away. Oh, it's Oris. Okay, no, I can relax. And they made a bit of a joke with me. They said, "You've been hiding yourself away out here in the country far too long. It's time for you to get back to work." So we had a long conversation, and they advised me on 3 things. They told me that I needed to learn meditation, but because I'd been a professional dancer, learning just sitting static type meditation would be hard for me. I had been playing around with it a little bit and not having any success. So their advice was to take up Tai Chi. Oh. And what I didn't know at the time, hardly knew what Tai Chi was, because, you know, again, Queensland, Australia in 1983, nobody knew about things like that. But what I found out later was Tai Chi is moving meditation. It's known as moving meditation. So they said to take up Tai Chi to assist me to learn meditation, but I needed to actually train in meditation formally as well. And they also said that I would be learning a natural healing technique. And the last thing they told me was that I would be leaving the property and moving back to town, because they said you need to move back to town to carry out this training that we have planned for you, and also to do your work. So over the next 3 years, one coincidence followed another. We did end up having to sell the acreage property and move back to town. And almost as soon as probably about a week after we moved there, Tai Chi classes started up around the corner from where we were living. And a woman moved next door. She'd moved up from down south, who had been meditating for 10 years in a group, and her teacher had also moved up from down south. And they were opening up a meditation circle, starting a meditation circle, and it was going to be a closed circle. Now, those who've done meditation would know that a closed circle, you normally never get invited into a closed circle until you've done meditation for years, because it's very, very full on. But they invited me, and I'd never meditated. So here I was asked to join this closed meditation circle. The Tai Chi, absolutely. The first class I went to, I just loved it, and I knew, okay, this is for me. And I started training to be a teacher. And then I sat in the meditation group for about 8 years. And during that time, a man started in the group who was a Reiki teacher, or a Reiki channel at that stage. He'd done Reiki level 1. And even though there were healers in this group, they taught spiritual healing in the group, which I learned. I could feel the difference between his energy and theirs. Every meditation group, we used to start with the Lord's Prayer and all hold hands around the circle. And on the first evening when this gentleman joined our group, the heat that was coming out of his hands was just amazing compared to all these very good professional spiritual healers who were very successful in their work, but the Reiki just felt different. And the other thing that I understood was that these other healers were all having health problems themselves. Whereas, as I learned later on with Reiki, because of the attunement process, it gives you protection, and you don't get this feedback from when you're treating other people. Okay. So that was a natural healing process that I was guided into learning. So here I am now. I teach Tai Chi. I also teach Reiki. And, of course, my connection with my Grey family strengthened hugely after that. Part of my training in the meditation circle was to learn automatic writing, which was preparation for me to write the books. So that's basically it in a nutshell.
Wow. Now, let's get back to what happened when you were a kid. Did you have like a lot of conscious memories of, of things that actually happened during that time?
No, not many at all. The main one I have is of being taken up our street by a tall, thin woman holding her hand. I mean, I was only a small child. I would have been about 3 at the time. Okay. She was holding my hand, and we were going to visit what my child mind told me was a railway station, and we boarded a train. And for the next few years, it was like the two sides of my brain were fighting with each other, because I knew there was no railway station at the top of our street. It was a quiet street with like a cul-de-sac, so there was nothing up there. And yet I knew that I'd been taken to this railway station there. And it wasn't until I got into the ET thing that I realised I was actually taken onto a ship. So that's about the clearest memory I have back then.
Now you say a woman. Was like human female, or was she something else?
No, I knew that there was something else about her. She felt to me on an energy level like my grandmother. My grandmother was living with us at the time, and she was a thin lady. And after this experience, I actually kept asking my grandmother, when are you going to take me back on the train? And of course, she had no idea what I was talking about. Okay. But I realised now that it was the Grey. Mm-hmm. She probably had a slightly human aspect sort of over her face. They will show you a screen image, so I wouldn't be scared. Mm-hmm. But the whole feeling was grandmother.
Okay. Now you had a lot of. Did you have like nightmares? 'Cause you were afraid of dolls and stuff like that. So I was wondering if you had like normal nightmares or.
Look, I vaguely remember that I did. I don't have an awful lot of memory. My parents actually, for part of the time, they owned a clothing and material dress shop, and I remember there was this mannequin that Dad brought home, and he had to store this thing right up under the house where I couldn't see it because I was terrified of it. I hated those fake mannequins in shops. I can't actually remember any particular dreams, but I know that I was having them.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I'm asking is this story I've never really talked about before. But for those that do know my story, I used to tell my mom there were a lot of people in my bedroom at night. And I was so afraid of looking behind me that I would sleep with the belly against the wall, like really tucked, like a plank, really. And I would not move from that position. And I'd sleep like that for years and years and years. Or something like perhaps fetal position, but really against the wall because I felt protected. But I remember my first nightmare ever as a kid. I still remember it. And this is why I find it so strange is that my uncle had my godfather, he had a pair of like boxing gloves in his closet. And I used to play with them. And one night, I wake up. I know the energy in the nightmare is really off, like weird, like surreal. And I see this 3-foot tall boxing glove on my bed, moving and just looking at me. And then in my mind, I cry out to my parents, and they come. They pick me up. Look, there's a 3-foot tall boxing glove on my bed, looking at me, and it's moving. Do you see it? And no, and I'm still in this like weird energy field, and it felt like really surreal. So I'm still wondering if that was like a screen memory, because why would I remember my first childhood nightmare ever?
Yeah, so it sounds like it. Yes. Yeah. One I can remember, talking about people around the bed. There was people surrounding the bed, and none of them had heads.
What? Okay.
So of course I just screamed.
Like, were you afraid of your closet? Like things under the bed? Okay.
Yeah, under the bed. I went through a lot of years of having to check under the bed. Even when I was okay about sleeping on my own, I would still check under the bed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have like any psychic episodes as a child?
Yes, funnily enough, I did actually. I saw the ghost, although he wasn't dead, of my dad. He was out one afternoon, and I saw him clearly walk up our street, walk up past our front fence, and turn in under the house. And I was a bit of a mischievous child, and I ran up to sort of hide behind the door where he was going to come out, and I was going to jump out on him, and he never came out. Oh. And I went upstairs. My brother was doing his homework at the dining room table, which was just inside the door. And I came in. Oh, where's Dad gone? He said, he's not here. He's out. And of course, I told Mum. And of course, my poor Mum panicked because she thought, oh no, he's had an accident and I've seen his ghost. But as it was, no, he was fine. He came home about an hour later. But I had seen him clearly. Oh. So he must have been thinking about home or something, and I saw his spirit walk up the street, clear as anything, mid-afternoon again.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, a lot of experiences do see ghosts. Well, that's what I'm getting at right lately. Now, so you had contact as a kid. Growing up as a teenager, did you have a normal, like, teenage life?
Yes. Again, the dual soul consciousness has come in because I've always had a number of strange sort of things. I couldn't say I really had a normal childhood. I found it very hard to relate to other children. And as a child, I had trouble with the idea of eating food, going to the bathroom, all those physical type things. I had to do it because I was in a human body. But I could never get my head around why I had to do this. I've also always had trouble with speaking out. And of course, the Greys have the almost set lower jaw. And I've only realised how much it's affected me when I look back on these Zoom and Skype interviews, and I can see that my jaw doesn't work properly, and even up the left side of my face doesn't work properly. And in fact, I took elocution classes at school. I went to a Catholic convent, and I used to go to the Mother Superior for elocution classes to try to help me to learn to speak out, which I always had trouble as a child. And then I had a really weird experience, probably when I would have been about, oh my goodness, probably about 20 years ago, when my Grey teacher, who I knew by then, actually came in one night when I was in an altered state and gave me a face, mouth and throat massage. And it was so weird. It was like being in a dentist chair. He was behind me and he had his hands massaging all around my face, and then his long, thin grey fingers right down into my throat. I could feel him right down here. It wasn't unpleasant. It was fine. It was actually quite enjoyable. Okay. And sometimes he was behind me, and when the Greys do healing, they press really hard, so really getting in and pressing my head back against his body to support my head. Then he'd come around the front and work, and I telepathically said to him, what are you doing? And he said, I'm doing healing. And I immediately thought of my mouth, and I've never had fillings or anything. I've got a very healthy mouth. So I said, I don't understand why you're doing healing there. And he said, to help you to speak out. And then the funny thing is, a couple of years ago, when the first time I had to get up and speak out as a dual consciousness Grey at a conference here in Australia, I started getting jaw problems again, not able to open the mouth. So I went along to a physiotherapist for a couple of sessions, and she basically did exactly the same thing as my Grey teacher had done, but just not going so deep down into the throat. Okay. But she was massaging me in exactly the same way. Wow. So that was interesting.
So how did you meet Maris? How did you know he was your teacher? Was it like a conscious recall of a memory?
Yes, it came very, very gradually. I was aware of a teacher. It wasn't, at first I didn't know his name. It was quite a few years before I got his name, but I was aware of this teacher hanging around. In those days, I was into the flamenco dancing, and I sort of thought of him as being like a Romany elder. That was how he put himself across when I used to see him. He showed himself in a human form, but again, he didn't look quite human. I knew there was something different about him. So I sort of thought about maybe he's of the Devic kingdom, nature spirit kingdom. He looked very sort of pan-like in his appearance. A week before I had the big contact in 1983, we actually met together during the night, and we sat together beside a screen, and he spoke to me at length, and he put this same appearance across. Just excuse me, when I start talking about it, he starts coming in and makes speaking difficult. We talked for a long time, and I think what the whole conversation was about, they were going to download, it was going to be like a walk-in experience, and they were planning to download more of my own ET consciousness into my physical body. And of course, Maris is a higher part of myself anyway. He's a higher aspect, as often our teachers are. So this meeting we had during my altered dream state, we were discussing the whole process that was going to take place, and he had to ask my permission because it was going to be a walk-in thing, and of course they can't do that without your permission. So I had to give my permission, and he explained to me what the process was going to involve. And then a week later was when I had the experience in the afternoon. And I was very, very aware of energy being put in through my crown chakra as they download. It was a massive download of my Grey consciousness being put in. And I basically did become just about a different person after that. I really changed hugely, and I must say for the better. I just became more spiritually oriented, more loving, more open, more environmentally conscious. It was a huge improvement. Even to the point where my husband noticed it.
That's bad. But now, okay, so we talked about the right key. So let's talk about what happened after that? So you've met Maris, and how did your relationship with him grow over time?
When you're communicating with one of these beings, it's just beyond words, you know, the absolute pure love that flows between you, because they're a higher aspect of your own being. It's like you know them to the depth of their being and they know you to the depth of your being. And so whether he shows himself in a more human form as he used to, or whether he shows himself in his grey form, there's no difference. I don't even look at the outer appearance. There's just this incredible depth. I remember once he appeared to me, again, I was in an altered state, and it was like started as a dream. I was in this forest, standing on the edge of a forest clearing, and I became aware of this massive orange orb floating on the other side of the clearing, this huge orb. And it came towards me, and I could feel this incredible depth of love. And part of my brain says to myself, well, that's weird, feeling love for an orange ball, you know, what's going on? And then all of a sudden he turned into his grey form and enclosed me. He wears like a black outfit, black hood and cloak and things, and he enclosed me in this cloak. And I remember just burying my head in his shoulder and crying my eyes out. And it wasn't crying for tears, it was just crying pure joy and relief. Oh, I'm home, I'm home, I'm home. And sort of holding on to him. And it was just absolutely beautiful.
Wow. Now, okay, so he was an orb?
He started off as an orange orb, and then shape-shifted into his grey form.
The thing is, so my dad was really down to earth. And like my mom, who passed away a few years ago, she was more into ETs and angels. And there's a lot of ghost stories in my family. But when I was able to call in the second UFO just over my parents' house, now this is like 30 feet above the trees, okay, it came in slow, like a 10-foot wide, orange, red, or I call it orange lollipop-ish color, like was it perhaps a cross between a watermelon and an egg shaped orb, let's say, orb ship, but you know, somewhat big. And my dad was able to see it when I came to the house to get him out. And from that moment on, he started getting experiences. And that maybe like a few months after that, this was in 2013. He had a cold, so he was sleeping in the basement bedroom. And as soon as he woke up one morning, a 4-inch golden orb came in through the basement window, and it glided from one end of the room to the other, and it went right back out. So we never knew what it was, but hearing your story, it could have been like the aspect of a being, but in energy form.
For sure. I remember taking a photo just a few years ago out our back window, and we'd had a really strong hailstorm, and there was hail all over the lawn, looked like snow. So I thought, well, I'll take a photo of it. And I never realised until I downloaded it on the computer a while later, there were all these orbs. I think there's a picture of it in one of my books. I think it's the Zeta Message, or it might be this book, this one here. Okay. Could be. Yeah. I can't remember. Okay. Of all these orbs filling the yard. I'll just see, it might be in this one. I'll just see if I can see any photos in here. I've got to leaf through it to see if I can find it. But I was absolutely shocked. And, you know, they don't come up on the camera. You've got to download them onto the computer to be able to see them. No, I can't find it. I think it might be in the other book.
Now, were you aware if your parents might have had contact?
Look, I think they did. I think my mum did, because she told me a very interesting story from when she was little. She said she was staying on a relative's farm, and there was a lot of very thick bushland around. And she said she suddenly saw this man, and he frightened her because he had no beard. And this didn't make sense. I mean, I know men in those days did wear more facial hair, but I mean, there were plenty of men around who didn't have beards. But it was obviously, I think it was more a grey she saw. And she was terrified and took off and ran. And luckily her cousin noticed she was running, and he came after her and grabbed her. Otherwise, as she said, she would have been lost in the bush, you know. Okay. But wow. This never made sense when she said, I saw a man and he was so strange. He had no beard, and I was scared of him. Okay, strange. Yeah. Now, my grandmother
well, I heard this later on after she passed away, but most of her dreams were of flying all the time. And my mom, the year she like the year prior, before she passed away, I bought her Barbara Marciniak's the Pleiadian Message, and so that was her first introduction to the ET thing. And but one dream, like a few months before she passed, she dreamt about what looked like a Pleiadian. But one thing that I never told her about or described to her was how like a reptilian looked like. And the thing she said was, Yannick, I looked at it, it was ugly. I was super afraid, and he had like leathery skin to his body. And so I thought, okay, well, yeah, she might have had something. But other than that, like she was really into angels. She had her own crystals and pendulums. So
lovely.
And, yeah, so that was pretty. So she was like my go-to person when I had like something happen.
Yeah.
I thought that all these experiences, these would happen to everyone, which wasn't the case.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you thought that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, okay. Okay, you've been taken. Were you aware if they've done anything to you, to your body, implants, skin samples, stuff like that?
Yes, yeah. I've had implants put into my body, but I've also worked on people up on the ship as a grey.
Oh.
I had an interesting experience. I know I was taken up quite a few years ago to have an implant put into the heart area, and I didn't want to leave. I can remember almost, doing the old star jump like cats do when you're trying to put them into a box to take them to the bed.
Okay.
And I was almost doing this up against the door of the ship.
Yeah.
And these poor little greys were saying, no, you've got to go home now. You've got to go. And I was, I don't want to. I don't want to. I want to stay. Just about throwing a tantrum on them. But I was aware of something being put into the heart area. But I've actually had more experiences of actually being up there as a grey working on other people.
Okay.
I had one very interesting experience where I was working on my own body, or I should say I was supervising a couple of greys working on my body. Now, when I woke up in the morning, I could remember something happening, but I couldn't remember what it was. And we were going to the beach that day, so I went to apply suntan lotion to my legs, and I saw this straight cut about probably 5 inches long, or 4 inches long, around the lower part of my right leg, and all sealed with tiny little blisters. And as I saw it, I remember clearly being up on the ship, and first I thought that I was the one lying on the bed, sitting up, guiding them. But then later on I thought, no, I think my body was on the bed and I was standing behind it. And I was teaching them how to use a laser cutter. And they were trying to get around my leg, and when they got to the lower part, they couldn't move any further. And I was saying, no, you've got to turn the leg, that way you'll be able to get underneath. It was so funny. And they obviously did a very, very good job because it was all cauterized neatly. There was no pain involved. It healed up super fast. But I still curse it to this day that I didn't have a camera back then, so I could have taken a photo of it. Because it was really, really impressive. And I had a scar for it for about a year afterwards.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, were you aware were you in an out-of-body experience, or were you in another grey body?
Look, I'm not sure. I wasn't aware of what body I was in, but I was definitely out of this body.
Okay.
Because my body that I knew was my body was lying on this bed in front of me. And at first I thought, oh, maybe I'm just sitting up guiding them, but now I remember, as more memories started coming through, I realised now I was standing up behind with the body laid out in front of me.
Okay. Now, what did the technology they used look like?
Sorry?
What did the laser look like?
I can't even remember. It was just a little instrument of some sort. Okay. Yeah.
Now, have you ever seen them use wands, or did they have like iPads?
Yeah. There is a thing, actually. I think what it was what we refer to as a laser pen. It's like a little pen that I've seen them used. Okay. Yeah, they do artwork with them too. They burn things onto paper, like a sort of a papyrus type paper. Okay. But it can also be used for operations. Yeah, that's what it is, a laser pen. I've forgotten that term.
Oh, pretty cool. Now, okay, have you had like experiences with owls?
Yes. Actually, I had an amazing experience with an owl. It's so funny, you forget about these things and you bring them up. And I remember, we were on acreage, not at the house where I had the contact. It was a house we were in before that. And for about 3 days, there was this weird-looking bird sitting on a fence, watching me every time I came out. Now, I've got a little bit of a bird phobia, so it was freaking me out a bit. And we had horses and we had dogs and we had a cat and they were all getting around. And this bird wasn't taking the slightest bit of notice of them. It was just staying there every time I came outside. So finally, on the 3rd day, I was going to read a book under the house. It was in the middle of summer, so I went under the house. And we lived in what's known here as a Queenslander, which we're still living in the same sort of house. They're up on stumps, so that in our torrential rain and that the water just runs underneath. But we'd actually enclosed it because we used to store the horses' food under there and our dogs. We had Labradors at the time and they all used to sleep under there. So we enclosed it, but it had 2 narrow doorways. And so I was sitting under there reading a book, and the next second, this bird, this owl thing, came flying through this narrow doorway and perched on a rafter right above my head. So, of course, being the brave soul I am, I absolutely freaked out, put the book over my head and ran from under the house. And I wasn't going to go back in because I didn't see it come out. So I waited and waited in the yard, getting hotter and hotter because it was the middle of summer, watching both doorways, waiting for this bird to come out. It never came out. So finally I got my courage up and went back in under the house and it disappeared, never to be seen again.
Strange.
But it was I think it was an owl. It was a funny looking bird, but I knew it was a bird of prey because it had the curved beak, but no other bird of prey would fly in under a house during the day, mid-afternoon. It must have been an owl.
Because the owls do tend to come a lot as a like a screen memory.
Yes.
So like the 3-foot owl in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in your books, you do tend to talk about you being a pilot. So what type of function did you have on the crafts?
I have flown craft. Basically just flying them. Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, I don't do that so much now. I'm more into the healing work and teaching work, but I was in a past life.
So how would you pilot a UFO?
You actually channel. You're like a conduit for universal life force energy. That's what they wear, the uniforms that are like, it's almost like the cladding on the outside of an electrical wire, and special shoes that ground the energy. And it's a form of like Reiki. That's the best way to describe it, because what you do, you draw the energy in through the crown chakra, comes down to the heart, down the heart meridians and out through the hands, and the hands are placed on like a console sort of thing, and the energy is channeled into the ship and it's guided by thought processes alone. So you're actually tuned into the energy of the ship. The ship is a sentient being as well.
Okay, that was my next question. Okay.
Yeah.
So is it like semi-organic, fully organic? Well, are you aware of that?
They're different. Some are completely organic, some are semi-organic. Yeah. There's all different sorts. Yeah, and also what they've got on the ship in the crew quarters. I know Susie Hansen talks about this in her Dual Soul Connection book. She calls them shelf beds, and they're like beds that come down out of the wall, like that. The walls here and the beds there. Mm-hmm. And when you come off shift, you can go and lie down on the bed, and it basically has the effect of defragging your consciousness. So it's like a relaxation, healing thing.
Wow. I need something like that here.
Oh, lovely, wouldn't it?
What type of I suppose you did have training on the ship, some form of education.
Yes. I would have gone through this as a child. I don't have a great deal of memory of that. What I do have a memory of now is actually doing training by training people myself. like teaching the little greys to use the laser laser cutter. Sometimes we have to speak to people on death, talking to people about things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I remember Susie helping others that were about to die.
Yes, yes,
I remember that. That was like really powerful, sad, but powerful. Now, what is it? What does it mean to be dual soul?
What it is it's before we come into the life. It's a pre-life choice. Generally, when a person's coming into a life, they tune into a planetary collective consciousness, a national collective consciousness, etc., of the planet or culture that they're going to be born into. When you're a blended or dual soul, you tune into two. So in my case, I tuned into Earth Human Collective and the Grey Collective as well. And we do this so that we can work as ambassadors between two cultures, so that I have an understanding of both sides. Now a conscious understanding. As I say, I withheld the grey side as a child, but in the 1983 encounter it started coming through, and then I've had a few more downloads since then, which has enabled it to come much more to my full consciousness. And so now I can have conscious memories of being up on the ship as a grey and down here as an Earth Human. Okay,
wow. Yeah, I've never been on a, it's strange. Each time that my emotion gets really high, my background starts to waver. It's really weird. Trust me. I for like the past like 5 videos, it does that when as soon as my my mood changes. Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking at my.
Yeah. Technology is very sensitive to it. I remember doing a video with a woman here in Queensland once, and she had a fully charged battery on her video camera. As soon as we started the interview, the camera of the battery became completely lost all its charge.
Really?
Just lost it. Lucky she had a second one. It just went woof.
Have your watches ever like died off?
I actually have the opposite effect on watches. I don't know if it's the Reiki energy, but I can have a battery watch for years and years and years, and it just keeps going.
Okay.
Because my husband sometimes hands his over to me to try and liven them up again.
Okay.
Reiki actually works with car batteries too. If you get into a situation where your car battery dies, the Reiki can get it going again.
Really? That's a first for me.
They're really handy.
Wow. Okay, now have you ever like received a training regarding oneness and ET consciousness?
Massive amount. And in fact, Yannick, that's what my last ebook, Cosmic Consciousness, is all about.
Okay.
It basically tells talks about religion, blending religion and science, because the two really are in oneness, or should be in oneness. So yeah, I've had a huge amount of training in that area. That seems to be my specialist area, consciousness.
Now, if I recall that, I think in your book you talk about coming to Earth. You might have crashed at Roswell.
Oh, it was one of the crashes. I've never claimed it's Roswell, but there's been a number of crashes. And yes, I can sort of remember that, and conscious dying after it,
really?
So that I'll be able to continue with our mission.
So, like, did you die on the crash, or were you?
Well, the physical container did.
Okay. Yeah.
Remember, we're a consciousness inside a physical container, as the Greys use. That's the term the Greys use. The body is a soul container, and the physical body is just like a vehicle.
Yeah.
So when you die, all it is stepping out of the vehicle. It's just like stepping out of a car.
Okay. So you went back to the collective.
Went back up,
and
we continued with the mission then in this life.
Okay, so like where you were reinserted into a grey body? Well, probably.
Yes. I've got a grey body to use and an Earth Human body to use. So when I go to sleep at night, I step out of this body and step into the grey one. I've actually seen myself do it in a mirror.
Really?
Which was interesting. Yeah.
Now, okay. Let's. Now, what's your connection to Helene Kaye? I know you do have a book together. So
yes. The Zeta message. Yes, Helene Kaye. She was the mother of a family who started, their 2 children, Kira and Ben, started having some very, very profound contact. The whole family was attuned to Reiki. Helene had done a Reiki course with my teacher, and then her husband and children all decided they wanted to learn as well. And about a week after the whole family was attuned, they started having some really, really weird experiences happening in their house, with the two children waking up at night absolutely screaming in fear with this black-clad figure standing in the corner of the room. And Helene contacted our Reiki teacher, worried about it, and he came over and offered to do a Reiki cleanse in the house, which is very, very effective. Reiki cleanses are great to get rid of any sort of negative entities or energies or anything. I've used it quite a lot in that way. But after the Reiki cleanse, this contact stepped up a level. There's even more of it. So he was heading off to Vietnam on a holiday, but he knew that I'd had these contacts. I was still having contacts, or had started having contacts at that stage. So he gave my phone number to Helene and told her to ring me if she was scared. So, of course, the poor thing, the next day she was on the phone to me. And the description that I'd heard of these beings tallied completely with my ET contact, because I knew by then that my Grey teacher, Oris, wore the black hood and the cape and everything. So I explained all that to Helene, and she was, thank goodness, very, very open to it all. And my explanation helped her to cope with it, because the contact became very, very full on. And eventually the daughter, Kira, made contact with another tall Grey by the name of Oris. And he used to visit them just about nightly. It was just amazing. And he was giving Kira the same information that Oris had given me. So this was, I mean, she knew nothing of my experiences. So this was wonderful confirmation and validation for me. And I was able to help Helene through it. And once they moved past the fear, it became, a very, very interesting nightly exercise. Oris coming in, and he used to take Kira up onto the ship. And their son, Ben, was also having experiences. He used to go through night terrors that he couldn't be brought out of. So, I had to give them quite a lot of help. And on my advice, Helene kept a diary almost on a nightly basis. And the diary notes are in the Zeta message book. Okay. So it's a real good book for parents who are going through this with star children or children having contact experiences, what Helene went through and how she handled it, and how that they managed to work their way through the fear to find love on the other side. It's quite lovely.
At what age did Kira started getting contact?
She was about 12 at the time, and the son was 7.
Okay.
But I think the son had been having contact for a while before that.
Okay. See, I've been having these sort of recalls of a possible thing that might have happened. I need to contact my brother. See, we had 2 bunk beds in my bedroom. My brother had his own room and stuff, but we just if we had visitors or other kids over, we had a second bunk bed. So being myself, I'm the older brother, so I'm 4 years older than him. I would sleep on the top bunk bed because I'd be able to know I won't fall off. But I have these memories of me waking up on the floor.
Wow.
So wow. Yeah, and I thought, wow, I fell off and I didn't hurt myself. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I've only been, yeah. So because the first bed would be a few feet off the floor, but the second bunk bed would be someone higher, maybe 5-6 feet, 5 feet in the air. So yeah. So that you
would have woken up for sure if you'd fallen out.
Yeah. So it's pretty strange.
Did you ever wake up lying the opposite way with your head down the foot of the bed? I did that a couple of times.
Yeah, but I think but I thought, okay, I probably did that because I just wanted to sleep in a different way. So it's hard to say if that was intentional or not. But
right, it used to really freak me out. You'd wake up all disoriented because your feet would be on the pillow, and I'd start screaming because Mum would come in.
I interviewed an American who's now in the Philippines because his wife's from there, and he would let's say so he's in bed, okay, underneath the covers. He gets taken when he's being brought back, he's being dropped on the bed, but the bed covers are all made. So they're all tucked in neatly underneath the mattress.
Yeah.
So each time, so I thought, okay, they're so nice, but again, they just like some of them do like to give you confirmation to that something
look,
actually
for
happened.
sure, absolutely. I've heard of someone coming back and being locked out of their house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did they get out? Well, first of all, really?
Yeah. I can't. I don't know. You know, I wasn't there when it happened, so I don't really know. But I do know. I think they must have been taken out because I know Kira used to be taken by Oris, and he used to enable her to walk through the locked door because they can change people's vibrational frequency.
Yeah.
When they're taking someone out, they can change the person's vibrational frequency to enable the person to move through walls and doors and things. Now, so I don't know if that might have been how the person was taken, and then they dropped him back and forgot to get him back in again, and so of course he was locked out.
Was Helene ever? Well, did she ever see her children being taken?
No, she did have a very profound out-of-body experience on one occasion, but she wasn't taken as much as the children.
Okay.
But she had a very conscious out-of-body experience with a teacher guiding her. That was quite amazing. Again, she tells the story in the Zeta message. That was an amazing experience.
Is she like a dual soul like yourself?
I'm not sure. I think she probably would be because you know she relates so easily to both sides. She doesn't have the conscious memories that I do, so maybe she isn't. But she's certainly very, very open to it.
It's amazing that you two connected. Like I wonder if there was a need for it at least.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. It would have all been orchestrated. I'm certain. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really close to Susie Hansen, and one time I dreamt about her, and I was giving her a hug, and this is very recent, and I was telling her that I said she's free. She's finally free now. And the thing is, so like the next day, I was so happy of dreaming about her. I tell her on Facebook. And the thing is, her mom passed away not too long before that.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah. So I connected to her and to give her comfort. And so that was something.
Yeah. We do that up on the ship. You know, like I have another close friend as well, and she and Helene and I, we all work together up there.
Oh.
And we'll come back with different levels of memory and things like that. But yeah, and it's so loving. It's beautiful coming together with people like that up there.
Yeah. Are you aware if like Kira had training on board the craft?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so you had upgrades in consciousness. I mean, like like in '67, you I think you had like a vision of sorts about Spain, a past life perhaps.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, that's right. It was in a music class at school, and the teacher put on a piece of Spanish music. Up until then, I had no memory of that past life, and I suddenly saw myself dancing, as a dancer in Spain, and in the middle of class in school.
Okay.
And that was what awoke that need to go back and learn flamenco.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's all so tied in. It's just amazing the way things are all orchestrated beforehand.
One thing that really bothered me growing up was all my life, and I remember when I was in my 20s, I knew that I was forgetting somebody, and it was like I was moving in the house, and like I'm forgetting someone, like somebody super important from my past, but I couldn't really put my finger on it. And growing up, there was this movie called The Child of Glass, a Disney movie of a girl who got murdered, and her soul was trapped in on a plantation. And the new family that bought the land, the young son got into contact with that girl's soul, and the way that she was dressed was all in white, like a very 1800s pajama, very fluffy, like white gown. And that really bothered me, and that image stayed with me all my life. I only saw the movie once, and so I had to go back and Google it, but that really bothered me. And one time I started getting like a lot of taps over the during at night, like they'd wake me up, like tick tock, and then like maybe a few weeks later, tick tock, like, and sometimes like even twice during the same, like on my body, but twice the same night.
Yeah.
And one time I was sleeping on my back and I started getting felt up, my leg, like my feet going upwards. And as soon as they came to my hip area, I go into a full blown vision. I'm seeing this like white angelic lady with like long blonde fluffy hair, but she was wearing like a white 1800s gown.
Wow.
And she says to, I only saw like the belly up, and she says to me, do you want to come with me? And I thought, well, that's weird. And the first thing I thought was about my mom. So I can't go with you because my mom's going to miss me. And, beforehand, when she appeared to me, she showered me with love, like so much intense love that all my cells felt the love. And in that dream state, let's say, I felt paralyzed. I couldn't move.
Yes.
It was so powerful. And I was I loved it. I said, oh my God, this is so great. And I said, as soon as I said, no, I can't come with you, I felt the exact opposite, intense sadness. And I thought, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do? And then she asked me, are you good with motors? What a weird question to ask.
Yeah.
And I've got rheumatoid arthritis, so my left hand is a bit, the joints are a bit like off a bit if you look at them.
Yeah.
And so you're not really strong. So I said, I thought she was an ET, so okay, she wants me to repair a UFO motor. So I said, no, I can't do anything with this hand. And as soon as I say that, again, extreme sadness. So poof, she disappears in a backward motion, and I wake up the next morning thinking it's just a dream. So like the next day or like the same day after, I can't recall. This was in December. I tried to start my truck with a long distance starter because not to start the truck so it can heat up. And it doesn't want to start, so I thought the battery was dead. So I go outside and I plug it on the charger for about like 4 hours to start it up. So after that, I try to start up the truck. It doesn't want to. So my dad tells me, go under the truck and start tapping on the starter to see if that's faulty. So I go under with remove all the snow and start doing tests. And for like a half an hour after that, I try to start it, and the motor starts after that. So I thought, okay, the starter's faulty. So as I go inside, that's when it hits me. Are you good with motors? Not UFO motors, but are you good with truck motors? So she wanted me to have confirmation of the visitation. I said, oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, she was beautiful. Her face was somewhat round, but I compared to her the image from Xanadu. If you remember that movie with Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah.
She portrays one of the Zeus's daughter, if I recall. And she was like, she eventually shows up in a sort of angelic form, all dressed in white. And that was like almost exactly as what I saw. So that was really, that's profound.
So beautiful. Yeah. And you can only, when you've had these experiences, you know what it's about. But trying to explain to someone who hasn't had these experiences, and it's very hard to get it across because it's so deep.
Now, did you share with other friends growing up, or did you have? No. So you kept everything to yourself.
Kept everything to myself. Oh, yeah.
How was that?
Yeah. It was hard. I didn't really know that other people were going through these things until I read Whitley Strieber's book Communion, and as I was reading it, it was like, oh my God, this is what I've been going through. Oh wow. Somebody else. Yeah. And it's really weird because when I was sitting in the meditation group, this is connected to his book. When I was sitting in the meditation group, the woman who ran our group was a very good psychic artist. And she used to see this face overshadowing me every week. And she decided to draw it, which I have. I think, again, it's in the Zeta message book. Okay. And after she gave me the pastoral drawing, I had it sitting on my dressing table or somewhere before hanging it up. And just at that time was when I acquired Whitley Strieber's Communion book. And I just happened to throw the book down in front of this drawing and didn't think any more about it. Then a while later, I came back into the bedroom, and the resemblance between the cover of that book, that ET face on Communion, and this drawing that my meditation teacher had done of me from a past life absolutely freaked me out. And that was when I think I started waking up, hey, I'm one of these people. I hadn't realised up until then.
Okay. Wow. At what age was this?
Yeah. It would have been, I would have been about 33 because it was 3 years after I had the contact. Yeah, so on one level, yeah, I've woken up, yes, they're family, but on another level, it hadn't clicked with me until I actually physically saw this drawing, you know, next to the book.
So what did you feel after that? Was it like an awakening of sorts?
Oh, awakening, huge awakening. Yeah.
Okay.
It sort of clicked with me then what they'd actually said, and my reaction to them, oh, it's family, they're family, it's okay. And then it sort of didn't go on any further from there until I actually saw this face.
Okay.
And then I realised, okay, yeah, I am, you know, I have got grey, you know, connections as well.
See, growing up for me, I never had any, I couldn't really connect with other students, other friends. Like I had friends, but they were very, like I could have counted them on like a hand. And
yep, me too.
So when I met my like, she was like sort of prophesized by a medium that I'd meet up with someone, and like that person changed my life, and she turned out to be an abductee. And so she brought me into this world. So because of that, I was able to learn that there were other people like me, and that really changed my life. And so I consider them like family now, and which normally I would consider them as other people or strangers, but it really, I guess coming out was one of the best things that I could have done.
Oh, you've got to eventually.
Yeah. You've
got to, otherwise you just about go mad. And you've got to connect with others.
I'm glad that you got a book with Helene, because a lot of mothers come to me and they talk about their child going through something similar. One time, I never had, she was looking for the drawing, but her daughter drew, like she might have been like 5 at the time. She drew like a stick figure, but she would call it like this person with shark eyes. So imagine like cartoon shark eyes, like very old, like tear-shaped, oval-shaped, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's a given that something's happening.
Oh yes, I used to draw them all over my school books. Yeah, just doodling in class when you're bored. I used to draw eyes.
Oh my god. So let's talk about Oris. You did talk about Maris. Is Oris the same type of Zeta that your Maris is?
Yeah. I actually, again, you know, we've got to come back to the oneness thing. I really think they're the same being, just different aspects of the same being.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
For us humans, it's hard to take in the concept, but it's so it's difficult.
Just incredible. Yeah.
Now, I think you've seen like body containers on a craft. Am I in error? Or?
Well, the Greys talk about the physical body as a container for the soul. That's the term that they use.
Let me see. I've heard stories of let's say like cloned bodies in a water container.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Okay, you haven't seen those, or
no, I don't actually remember seeing them, but I am aware that they are. Yeah.
Okay.
For the soul to be able to move into. Like say a lot of the Greys have actually moved past the need for physical form. They've sort of evolved past that. But sometimes they have to come and work in a physical atmosphere or semi-physical, and so they will use those semi-artificial containers to enable them to have a body. It's almost like a tool for them.
Now, a lot of people that I interview, all the females at least, they had things taken from them, like eggs. Like I'm not sure if you were like went through something similar, because you've got your own mission. So I'm not sure that you would have been part of like a hybrid program, but
yeah, no, I don't think I am. No, I'm not aware that I am. I mean, I may have, but I'm not aware of it. I've never been introduced to hybrid children or anything, as some have.
Okay.
I know Helene works with hybrid children up on the ship. She's a very motherly sort of nurturing person. Mm-hmm. And I know she's involved in that program and works with them and teaches them, but I'm not.
Okay. Let's talk about the interview with the alien, comments by an undercover ET.
Oh, yeah, the ebook. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Look, I wrote that book as a commentary. You're probably familiar with the Lawrence Spencer book, Alien Interview. Are you familiar with that?
Yep.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people contacting me over the years about that book, asking whether it was true or not. And I actually read it going back quite a few years ago. And I had a very strong reaction to it in two ways, because some of the information was very, very familiar to me, but a lot of it was really, really wrong. And I didn't like the way the ET character Elle, who the nurse Matilda interviewed, I didn't like a lot of the way her telepathic message was translated, and I could feel a lot of disinformation being put in, which really upset me, coming from that grey angle. So when I read it back then, I was determined to write a commentary on it. But because I was in the process of writing another book at that time, my Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth book, I just couldn't get around to it. So when that third book finally got published, I started working on the Alien Interview book. And so what I basically did, I just dissected the whole thing and retranslated the telepathic messages in it into a more accurate way, and just commented on a lot of the disinformation and just tried to sort of clarify it and correct the wrong things in it.
Okay. Wow. Because I remember reading it once, like a few years ago, and it really blew my mind.
Yeah.
So having your perspective on it would be probably to see at least your viewpoint on that subject really is. Yeah.
What I didn't like, it came across to me very much like Star Wars fiction, all these galactic wars and, the baddies and all, and none of that is correct. And I just wanted to, clarify all that. How
about the Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth? Let's talk about that book. What is it about, the actual ETs on the planet?
Oh, yes, but that book, I was actually asked to write that book. We had a meeting up on the ship in November of about 2011, and they were concerned about the hijacking of the planet. This planet had been hijacked many millennia ago, and this is why the genuine ETs are coming here now to try and free humanity from this hijacking. And they were asking for volunteers to, take part in this mission to overcome this hijacking thing. And I got asked to write a book on it because, I'm an author, so they asked me to write a book on it. And I had no intention at that stage to write another book. I just had the other two published. So I didn't really want to start on another one. But, yeah, they pushed and pushed. And then, funnily enough, my publisher must have been there at that meeting because the next thing, he turned around and asked me to write a book. So, I was being attacked from all angles. Yeah. Basically, Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth talks about earlier human cultures that were on Earth before modern day man. And the two main ones that we deal with in the book is the ant people, who are an early grey culture, because of course the greys are insectoid as opposed to modern mammalian humans. So there was an ant people culture down here. And there was also a Earth human reptilian culture that was bioengineered out of the dinosaurs. And I refer to these ones as repterans to differentiate them from the reptilians, because the reptilians from off-planet are generally fine. They're good people, they're healers, they're protectors. But the repterans are a negative group. But they're actually an Earth human group, and this is how they have so much influence here. The planets protect from outside attacks. Okay. So, you can't have negative ETs coming here, but this group is from planet Earth. Okay. But they're in another dimension, but yes, they can still affect people. And they've basically been brainwashing humanity and controlling humanity for many, many millennia, going right back to biblical times. And they're the ones that are referred to now as the Illuminati and the controllers, etc., etc. All those different names, the Cabal, all those ones. Okay. Yeah. So I refer to them in my book as the Reptarian controllers. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Oh, okay. Wow. They're the ones behind all the My Labs, the fake alien abduction scenario thing that a lot of people have been subjected to. There's so much disinformation and faking going on there. And now the real ETs are coming here to just try to intervene. Okay.
Yeah, Barbara Marciniak talks about something similar. Again, there was a control group in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so they don't want us to know the truth, and they keep things hidden from us.
Yeah. I remember one of the Greys, and I think I remember reading this in Susie Hanson's book as well, but I've been told the same thing. It's like planet Earth has been sort of pushed out of the mainstream of the universe. The universe has flowed on and evolved, whereas planet Earth sort of been pushed into a little stagnant pool beside the rest of the universe, stuck here, unable to move on, and stuck in this warmongering and negativity.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we see that a lot with what's going on right now. We're being constantly being in a sort of fear mode all the time. And when it starts to die down, there's something new all the time, and people aren't really figuring that out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I can see the reptilian controllers behind that real strong.
Now, are you aware that, a lot of people say that the reason was why there's a lot of abductions going on with the women is that the Greys can't really reproduce. Is that true?
Yeah, this is quite a complex issue. Yes, this happened with the ant people. They were in like a war with the reptilians. The reptilians just about ruined them, just about destroyed their culture on a couple of occasions. And they actually went to war within themselves. And because they were a creator race, they were basically terraforming the earth in the beginning when the planet was first being formed. They were right into the terraforming and ecosystem and all that, working very closely with the nature spirits. And in the end, they started going, reproducing too much, going down the same path that Earth humans are going now. And they ended up being involved in a war with the reptilians who were trying to take over the planet. And so they lost their ability to reproduce. And they also, because it was emotion, like with modern day humans, it's emotion that's getting them into trouble, all this anger and hatred and fear and all. And this early ant people culture felt so bad they almost wrecked the planet because of this emotion thing. They had a war, almost wrecked the planet. And so they backed right away from emotion or almost bred it out of their being. And they realised eventually that, no, this was wrong. You can't exist as a human without emotion. And so other off-planet Greys have been coming in and helping them as well as trying to help Earth humans. So the two cultures needed help. Mm-hmm. And so this is why there's been a hybrid program to help both cultures, help the ant people to become more human and to help Earth humans cool back their over-emotion. So it's sort of a balancing out. Okay.
Wow. So are you aware of what's going to happen to you when you're going to leave this body?
I'll just go back up on the shift to work again.
Okay.
Go back there again.
Yeah. Playtime's over, back to work.
Oh, look, we always joke we're going to chain ourselves to something and refuse to go out on any more missions for a while. We just want to relax for a while. I wouldn't mind talking about the human ladder. This is a teaching that we were given, Kira and myself were given it many, many years ago, back in about 2001 by Oris. And it really, really explains a lot about human evolution and oneness. The Greys refer to this, what they call a human ladder, and it's a cycle of evolution that all humans in the universe pass through, and it has 10 levels, what they call galactic levels, but they're not physical galaxies or anything. What they are expanding and deepening levels of conscious awareness. Now, those of us who are living on planet Earth are on level 1, which means we can access about 10% of our potential conscious awareness, which is intrinsically linked into about 10% of our DNA that's active. Now, when they talk about consciousness, we're not talking about brain, we're talking about consciousness, not the physical organ of consciousness. We're actually talking about consciousness, universal life force energy consciousness. So as we evolve from level 1 to level 2, which is what planet Earth is in the process of doing now, people will be able to access 20% of their consciousness. Once you evolve to level 3, you can access 30%. So right all the way up to level 10, which is right up the top, where you become full consciousness. And as our mind expands and we become more able to access more and more consciousness, we gradually move away from the need for physical form. Physical form is just a very, very small part of us. And the other thing that's really important to understand is that we have a part of our being on all 10 levels of the human ladder. So often when we're visited by a higher being or an ET or a teacher or someone like that, it's actually a part of our own being from higher up the ladder.
Oh. Okay.
So now we're really talking about oneness.
So, okay, that brings me to the analogy that, well, this is, okay. So let's say your true being is your palm, but you've got different aspects of yourself branching out.
Yeah.
So
that's it.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah. We can look on the higher self as being the hand.
Okay. Yeah.
And
that's right.
These are all different aspects of ourselves. And because we're multidimensional, the old thing that religion talks about, man being made in the image of God, what that actually means is, in our true form, we're multidimensional energy, just as God is multidimensional energy. I go into this a lot in my Cosmic Spirituality book.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So when let's say that those that pray, we do have interactions with guides, so those could actually be ourselves helping ourselves.
Yes,
sort of.
yes. Okay. And what God is like a universal energy that permeates all of creation. So we all have God within us. And so God forces motivates us. So God's not out there. He's not no man up on a cloud. He's inside all of us.
Okay.
And God is universal consciousness.
So those that do come into human bodies, they're likely to have like a human soul. They couldn't have been like another ET race incarnating as a human.
Well, the soul is just multidimensional. It's no culture or race or anything involved. A part of the soul will come down as a nurse human or a Zeta or a Pleiadian or whatever. But that's just a small section of the whole consciousness, the whole soul consciousness. So
let's call it a night. So thank you so much for coming on again. You're amazing, and
thank you for having me, Yannick. It's all been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
And to those watching tonight's episode, I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys next time. So take care, everyone. Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Grey, and thanks for watching today's episode. If you are an abductee, contactee, or experiencer, and you believe that your story could help others, please feel free to contact me through my YouTube channel email. When it comes to experiencers, the ET phenomena, and the future, remember, truth will out.